Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that changed my life. You don't stumble into greatness. You earn it. You build it brick by brick, thought by thought, habit by habit. Now, someone once asked me, Jim, what does it take to be the best? And I told them, it's not magic. It's not mystery. It's a method. Here are 5 secrets, timeless principles that'll take you from average to exceptional, from good to great, and yes, even to the best. Clarity, my friend, is where it all begins. If you don't know where you're going, how will you ever get there? It sounds simple, but it's one of the most overlooked foundations of success. People say they want success, they want greatness, they want to be the best, but when you ask them what that really means, most can't give you a clear answer. They're fuzzy, they're vague, and vagueness leads to delay, it leads to distraction, it leads to settling for average. You must get specific. You see, when the picture in your mind is blurry, your efforts become scattered. You try a little of this, a little of that, and never go deep enough to truly master anything. But when the vision is clear, every action starts to align. You begin to say no to the unnecessary and yes to the essential. You stop wandering and start building. That's the power of clarity. It acts as a filter. It helps you distinguish between what is urgent and what is important, what deserves your time and what doesn't. Now, clarity isn't just about a goal. It's about the kind of person you must become to reach that goal. If you say you want to be the best writer, what does that mean? Do you want to write books that change lives? Articles that inspire? Scripts that win awards? You see, even within a field, there are levels. And the sharper your definition, the more precise your actions will be. Clarity also brings energy. You don't wake up tired when your goal excites you. You don't hit snooze when your vision pulls you. Motivation becomes natural because you're not just working, you're building something you can see. And here's the beauty. When you can see it, you can start to feel it. When you can feel it, you believe it. And when you believe it, you act on it with more power, more consistency, and more conviction than ever before. Let me give you an example. If I told you to drive from New York to Los Angeles, but I didn't give you a map, a route, or a timeline, how confident would you feel? You might still get there eventually, but you'd take wrong turns, waste fuel, get frustrated, and maybe even give up. But if I gave you GPS, turn-by-turn directions, and checkpoints along the way, now you're moving with certainty. That's what clarity does for your goals. It becomes your GPS. And here's something else. Clarity gives you permission to say no. When you're clear on your destination, you don't take detours just because they look interesting. You don't sign up for every opportunity. You don't chase every trend. You stay in your lane, you focus. And in today's noisy, distracted world, that kind of focus is a superpower. Clarity leads to simplicity, and simplicity leads to speed. But don't mistake clarity for perfection. You don't need to have the whole journey figured out. You just need to be clear on the next step and the direction. Think of clarity like a flashlight in the dark. You may not see the whole path, but you can see just far enough to take the next step. And as you move forward, the light goes further. Progress creates more clarity. Action reveals what thinking alone cannot. How do you get clarity? You ask better questions. Not what do I want, but what do I want most? Not what can I do, but what must I do? You write your vision down, you refine it, you revisit it often, you talk to people who've walked the path, you study what excellence looks like in your field, and you don't just dream, you define. One of the great mistakes people make is mistaking motion for meaning. They stay busy without being intentional. But clarity ends that. It forces you to stop spinning your wheels and start building with purpose. It turns your to-do list into a must-do list. It helps you track your progress and course correct faster. It transforms effort into effectiveness. If you want to be the best at anything at all, don't start with ambition. Start with clarity. Know what you want. Know why it matters. Know who you must become. And the rest, that's just execution. Clarity doesn't guarantee success, but without it, success is almost impossible. Discipline is the invisible force that separates the dreamers from the doers. It's not flashy, doesn't shout, but it's the quiet power behind every extraordinary result. Anyone can be motivated for a day. Anyone can get excited when the mood is right, when the music is playing, when the crowd is cheering. But when the room is silent, when no one is watching, when the feeling fades, discipline is what keeps you going. And that's why it's so essential if you truly want to be the best at anything. Motivation is like a spark. It's emotional, temporary, and often dependent on external factors. You watch a video, hear a powerful quote, or listen to a speech, and suddenly you're fired up. You're ready to change the world. But give it a few hours or a few days, and that fire begins to flicker. That's where most people fall off. They were relying on motivation, not systems. They were chasing inspiration instead of building discipline. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It cares about what you've committed to. And when you commit to being the best, you no longer leave your actions up to your emotions. You start acting according to principle. You train when you don't feel like it. You study when it's inconvenient. You stick to the plan when distractions try to pull you away. That's discipline. Discipline is really about keeping promises to yourself. Think about it. When you tell yourself, I'm going to wake up early and practice, or I'm going to write every day, or I'm going to work on my business for an hour each evening, and you follow through, that builds trust with yourself. Every act of discipline reinforces your identity. It says, I'm the kind of person who shows up. And over time, that identity compounds. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop making excuses. You simply do. Most people fail not because they lack talent or resources. They fail because they lack consistency. And consistency is built on discipline. The top performers in any field, whether it's sports, business, art, or science, aren't always the most gifted. There's a saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But let's take that further. Discipline beats both when discipline is daily. That's the edge. That's the difference maker. Now, discipline doesn't mean you never rest or that you push yourself to burnout. It means you create a structure. You define your non-negotiables. You build habits that support your mission. You live with intention. And here's the beautiful part. The more disciplined you become, the less willpower you need. Why? Because it becomes who you are. Habits take over. Your environment starts working for you, not against you. Let's not sugarcoat it. Discipline can be uncomfortable. It means delaying gratification. It means saying no when others are saying yes. It means turning off the TV, closing the social media apps, and focusing on what really matters. But the pain of discipline is far lighter than the pain of regret. One lasts a moment. The other can last a lifetime. And here's the thing about discipline. It's not just about doing the hard things. It's about doing the right things. Working long hours isn't discipline if it's all wasted effort. Discipline is about being efficient, not just busy. It's about knowing your priorities and sticking to them. It's about saying, this is the work that moves the needle, and making that work sacred. In the beginning, discipline might feel like a burden. You'll resist it. You'll fight it. But if you stay with it, if you keep showing up, it transforms. It becomes freedom. Because once you're disciplined, you're no longer controlled by your moods, your cravings, or your circumstances. You take charge of your time. You take charge of your results. You take charge of your life. So if you want to be the best, not just good, not just talented, but truly elite, build your discipline muscle. Train it like you would a skill. Set small goals, follow through, track your progress, adjust when needed. And above all, never break the streak. One disciplined day leads to the next, and before long, you've created momentum that few can match. Because when the crowd disappears, when the spotlight is gone, when no one is clapping, that's when the best are made. Not in the moment of glory, but in the quiet hours of practice. Discipline is what turns potential into power. It's not glamorous, it's not easy, but it's always worth it. Becoming the best at anything doesn't begin with doing something extraordinary. It begins with mastering the ordinary, the basics, the fundamentals. You see, we live in a world obsessed with shortcuts and hacks, constantly searching for the newest, fastest way to achieve greatness. But the truth is, true excellence is built on doing the simple things, the right things, over and over until they become part of who you are. The best performers in any field aren't chasing complexity, they're perfecting simplicity. Fundamentals are the building blocks of all progress. Whether it's sports, business, writing, public speaking, or playing an instrument, they're core principles that everything else is built upon. And yet most people rush past them. They want to skip the basics because they seem boring or slow, but what they don't realize is that these basics form the foundation, and if the foundation is weak, everything else eventually collapses. Let's take basketball, for example. The greatest players in the world, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, weren't just talented athletes. They were relentless students of the fundamentals. Shooting, dribbling, footwork, defense. The same drills they learned as kids, they kept doing them. Not because they were easy, but because they were essential. They didn't move on from the fundamentals. They went deeper into them. When you master the fundamentals, you unlock a level of confidence and consistency that others simply don't have. You don't second guess your actions. You don't panic when things go wrong. You rely on muscle memory, on training, on habits built through repetition. It's tempting to believe that greatness lies in advanced strategies or fancy techniques. But most breakthroughs come from refining what you already know, not discovering something new. The difference between average and elite often isn't in what they know, it's in how well they execute the basics. They don't do more things, they do fewer things better. Think of a writer. A world-class writer doesn't need 10 different tricks for every sentence. They've just mastered the core elements: clarity, structure, rhythm, and purpose. They don't write to impress, they write to communicate. And because they've mastered those basics, their words carry more weight, more power, more impact. Or take a business owner. The fundamentals of business haven't changed. Know your customer. Provide value, communicate clearly, build trust, deliver consistently. These principles are timeless. The tools may change, the platforms may evolve, but if you don't understand the fundamentals, no amount of software or automation will make your business thrive. Mastery of the fundamentals also creates resilience. When things fall apart, when plans go sideways, when you face adversity, guess what you fall back on? Not the fancy stuff. You fall back on the basics. That's why the military drills basic movements over and over. That's why musicians practice scales. That's why speakers rehearse opening lines again and again. Because when the pressure is on, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. And here's something else. Fundamentals create speed. When you know the basics so well that you don't have to think about them, you can move faster. Decision-making becomes instinctive. Execution becomes automatic. That's why the best make it look easy. It's not because it is easy, it's because they've worked tirelessly to make it look that way. The path to mastery is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most, better than anyone else. And what matters most is rarely flashy, it's rarely exciting, but it is always powerful. Fundamentals are like gravity. They're invisible, but they affect everything. So if you want to be the best at anything, don't overlook the basics. Embrace them, fall in love with them, revisit them regularly. Ask yourself, am I truly excellent at the core elements of my craft? Am I drilling the essentials until they're automatic? Because if you're not, then every layer you add is built on shaky ground. There's no shortcut to greatness that bypasses fundamentals. The long way is the short way, and the boring way, the repetitive, disciplined, consistent way, is the only way to mastery. The fundamentals are not the beginning of the journey, they are the journey. And those who commit to them long after others have moved on, those are the ones who rise to the top and stay there. If you want to be the best at anything, you can't walk the path alone. You can try, but the journey will be longer, harder, and more confusing than it needs to be. One of the most powerful accelerators of growth is surrounding yourself with the right people. Those who push you, challenge you, correct you, and inspire you. Mentorship and feedback are not optional for those who truly want to excel. They're essential. They give you something that books and videos never can: perspective based on real experience and truth based on actual results. Mentors are people who have walked the path ahead of you. They've made the mistakes. They've learned the lessons. And if you're humble enough to listen, they can help you avoid years of wasted effort. A great mentor doesn't just tell you what to do. They show you how to think. They help you see yourself more clearly, understand your blind spots, and sharpen your instincts. And most importantly, they believe in your potential before the world does. The value of mentorship isn't just in the advice, it's in the accountability. When someone you respect is watching your progress, when you know you'll have to report back, you raise your standards, you prepare more, you execute better. You don't settle for good enough. You start to model the discipline, attitude, and work ethic of your mentor. Their mindset becomes your mindset. Their habits begin to shape your own. But mentorship is only half the equation. The other half is feedback. And here's the truth. If you can't take feedback, you'll never grow beyond your current level. Feedback is the mirror that shows you who you really are, not who you think you are. And yes, sometimes it stings. Sometimes it hurts to hear that you're not as good as you thought, that your effort fell short, or that your strategy isn't working. But if you're serious about being the best, you'll welcome that discomfort. Because behind every piece of honest feedback is an opportunity to get better. Too many people surround themselves with voices that only tell them what they want to hear. They seek validation instead of correction. They build echo chambers instead of growth environments. And as a result, they stay stuck. They might improve a little, but they never break through. On the other hand, the elite, those at the top of their game, they invite feedback. They study film. They ask for critiques. They review their performances. Not because they're insecure, but because they're committed to mastery. And feedback doesn't have to come from one person. It can come from clients, customers, teammates, competitors, and even strangers. Every result you get, whether it's success or failure, is feedback if you're willing to pay attention. Did the strategy work? Did the audience respond? Did the product sell? Did the message land? Every outcome is data, and the best use that data to improve. Here's the key though. You must be coachable. That means being open, teachable, and humble. It means recognizing that no matter how good you are, there's always room to grow. Even the greatest athletes in the world have coaches. Even the top CEOs have advisors. Being the best doesn't mean you have all the answers. Being around the right people also means removing the wrong ones. If your circle is filled with complainers, excuse makers, and people who settle, you will eventually become like them. Environment is stronger than willpower. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your environment doesn't support your vision, your potential will suffer. You need people who challenge your laziness, confront your ego, and remind you of your goals when you forget. And this isn't just about finding mentors who are far ahead of you. Peer mentorship is just as powerful. Sometimes the right person to push you is the one growing beside you. Iron sharpens iron. Competing with someone on your level, someone who wants it just as badly, can light a fire in you that nothing else can. So don't just look up, look around. Build a circle that runs together, learns together, and wins. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's not just a nice quote, it's a strategy for excellence. Surround yourself with people who stretch your standards. Listen to those who challenge your assumptions. Stay humble enough to be coached and brave enough to be corrected. Because the truth is, no one becomes the best by accident, and no one becomes the best alone. In the pursuit of excellence, most people believe it's all about talent, luck, or intelligence. And while those things can help, they aren't the determining factors. What truly separates the best from the rest is consistency. The ability to show up day in and day out, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the obstacles, regardless of the results. Consistency isn't glamorous. It doesn't make headlines, but over time, it becomes the difference between average and exceptional. The world is full of people who start strong. They're excited at the beginning of the journey. They buy the gear, make the plan, share the goal on social media, and jump in with enthusiasm. But when the results don't come fast, when motivation fades, when life gets in the way, they stop, they give up, they start something else. And then they repeat the cycle. What they lack isn't skill, it's staying power. They haven't built the muscle of consistency. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about showing up even when you're not at your best. It's about doing the work, even when you're tired, bored, uninspired, or discouraged. It's understanding that progress doesn't happen in big dramatic leaps. It happens in small, steady steps repeated over time. You don't become great in a day. You become great through disciplined repetition of meaningful action. Think of it like compound interest. Each workout, each study session, each sales call, each practice drill, they may not seem like much on their own, but over time they build something powerful. The results may not show up right away, but they are accumulating, and eventually you hit a tipping point. That's when people look at your success and say, wow, it happened overnight. But you'll know it didn't. It was the result of months or even years of consistent effort when no one was watching and no one was cheering. One of the greatest advantages of consistency is that it creates momentum. When you do something every day, it becomes part of your identity. You no longer have to decide whether or not you'll do it, you just do it. That saves mental energy. That removes the debate. Consistency builds routines, and routines build results. You don't need more motivation, you need more habits. But let's be honest, consistency is hard. Life is unpredictable. There will be days when you're frustrated, distracted, or tempted to skip the work. That's why it's so important to make your process sustainable. Don't build a plan that depends on you always being at 100%. Build a plan that works even when you're at 60%. It's not about giving your best on your best days. It's about showing up on your worst day, because that's what builds character, that's what builds resilience, and over time, that's what builds excellence. One of the most powerful things you can do to stay consistent is to track your progress, whether it's a journal, an app, or a simple checklist. Seeing the streak grow gives you a sense of progress, keeps the fire alive. It reminds you that what you're doing matters. And even when the results are invisible, the effort is not wasted. Every rep counts. Every page read matters. Every early morning adds up. Another key is to focus on process, not just outcomes. If your goal is to become the best, you need to love the process of becoming better. Results will come in time, but the process is what you can control today. Fall in love with the work. Fall in love with the effort. Find joy in the daily practice of improvement. When your identity shifts from I want to be the best to I'm someone who does the work, consistency becomes much easier. People often overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. 1 hour of focused work a day might not look like much, but 365 hours a year, that's transformational. That's the edge. Most people quit long before they see the payoff. So if you want to be the best at anything, don't chase perfection, chase consistency. Build a rhythm. Honor the routine. Make showing up your superpower, because in the end, greatness isn't created in the big moments. It's forged in the small, quiet choices you make every single day. And if you can stay consistent long enough, the results will come. They always do. In the journey toward becoming the best, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Challenges are not the exception, they are the rule. No matter what you pursue, obstacles will arise. Plans will fail, people will doubt you, you'll face moments where nothing makes sense, where your confidence is shaken, and where quitting feels like the easier option. But here's the defining difference between the best and everyone else. The best don't run from challenge, they rise to meet them. Adversity is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. More often than not, it's a sign you're on the right one. Because anything worth achieving is going to test you. It's going to stretch you beyond your current limits. You don't grow when things are easy. You grow when you're forced to dig deeper, think harder, and act braver than you ever have before. The best understand that challenges are not there to break them, they're there to build them. Think about a diamond. It's formed under extreme pressure. Think about a muscle. It grows through resistance. You can't become stronger without struggle. You can't develop grit without hardship. So instead of fearing challenges, start embracing them. Let them shape you, refine you, and prepare you for the level you say you want to reach. There's a mindset that separates elite performers from the average, and it's this. They see problems as puzzles, not walls. When something goes wrong, they don't say, "Why me?" They ask, "What can I learn?" When they hit a setback, they don't fold, they adjust, they adapt, they dig in, they find another way. That flexibility paired with perseverance is a powerful combination, because you won't always be able to control what happens, but you can always control how you respond. Too many people let challenges define their limits. They say things like, "I'm not good at this," or "It's too hard," or "I guess it wasn't meant to be." But champions use challenges to define their growth. They say, "I'm not there yet," or "This is an opportunity to get better," or "This is going to make the victory even more meaningful." That shift in thinking makes all the difference. Here's the truth. Challenges build credibility. When you push through difficulty and come out stronger, people notice. You gain respect. Not just from others, but from yourself. Every time you overcome something you once thought was impossible, your confidence grows. Not because everything is easy now, but because you know. But rising to challenges isn't about going it alone or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about being honest. It's about seeking help when needed. It's about asking better questions, finding better tools, and building better systems. Sometimes rising means pausing to regroup. Sometimes it means finding a mentor, joining a team, or reworking the plan. Rising doesn't mean being reckless. And sometimes the biggest challenge is internal. It's your mindset, your fear, your self-doubt. The voice in your head that says you're not good enough. That voice will always be there, especially when you're leveling up. But you don't have to listen to it. You can choose a new voice. One that says, keep going. One that says, you've come this far, don't stop now. One that says, this challenge is here to teach you, not stop you. When you develop the habit of rising to challenges, you start to welcome them. You stop avoiding discomfort and start leaning into it. You become more courageous, more creative, and more capable than you ever thought possible. And before long, you realize these challenges didn't block your success, they shaped it. So if you're in a tough season right now, if you're facing a challenge that feels overwhelming, take a breath. You are made for this, not because it's easy, but because you're willing to grow through it. Stand tall, think clearly, act boldly, and rise, not just to meet the challenge, but to become the person who thrives because of it. Because in the end, success doesn't go to the person with the fewest problems. It goes to the person with the most powerful response. Challenges don't stop the best, they reveal them. So the next time the road gets hard, remember, this is not the end of your story. It's the moment that makes you. Rise to meet it. You're more ready than you think. When you study the people who have become the best in any field, whether it's in business, sports, science, the arts, or leadership, you'll notice something very specific about them. Yes, they work hard. Yes, they are disciplined. But above all, they have one thing in common. They know exactly why they do what they do. They have a purpose, a reason, a vision that fuels their effort, guides their choices, and anchors them when the storms of life roll in. Purpose isn't just a motivational idea, it's a foundational tool for building excellence. Without a clear purpose, it's easy to get lost. You can have the talent, the opportunity, and the drive, but without direction, your energy scatters. You try everything and finish nothing. You get distracted by trends. You chase other people's goals. You measure success by someone else's definition. That's how people end up burned out, bitter, or constantly comparing themselves to others. But with purpose, every action becomes intentional. Every step moves you forward. You know where you're going, so you're not easily pulled off course. Purpose gives meaning to struggle. When you know why you're doing something, hard days don't discourage you the same way. You can endure the pain because you know it's part of something bigger. You're not just working late nights or early mornings for no reason. You're doing it because you're building something that matters. Whether it's creating a business to support your family, mastering a craft to impact others, or breaking generational cycles, your purpose becomes your anchor. It turns effort into mission. But finding purpose doesn't always happen in a flash. It's not always some grand cinematic moment. Sometimes it starts small. It begins with curiosity. What excites you? What frustrates you? What do you naturally care about? It grows from reflection. What do you want your life to stand for? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Is often emerged through experience, trying different paths, learning through failure, paying attention to what lights a fire in your soul and what leaves you feeling empty. The best don't just stumble into purpose. They seek it. They ask hard questions. They evaluate their values. They create space for vision. And once they've identified their why, they keep it close. They write it down. They talk about it. They revisit it when things get tough. And the more connected you are to it, the more powerfully it fuels your actions. Purpose also sets the standard. When you have a clear sense of why you're doing something, you don't settle for shortcuts or half efforts. You're not tempted to cheat the process or cut corners. Because your goal is bigger than winning today, it's about living in alignment with your values. That's why people with strong purpose are consistent. They're grounded. They don't need to be pushed. They're pulled forward by something within. They're not just chasing success, they're fulfilling something meaningful. Purpose also impacts the people around you. When others see that you're living with intention, they're inspired. Your discipline makes sense to them. Your sacrifices are respected. You become someone others want to follow, work with, and support. Purpose is contagious. It multiplies your influence. And if you lead others, whether in a team, a company, or a family, your purpose sets the tone. It becomes the foundation for culture. People will forget your strategies, but they'll remember your conviction. But perhaps most importantly, purpose brings joy. It transforms your work from obligation to opportunity. Even on the hardest days, you feel alive. You feel connected to something beyond yourself. That sense of contribution, of progress, of alignment, it fills your days with more satisfaction than any paycheck or trophy ever could. It becomes the reason you keep going, the reason you keep growing, and the reason you keep showing up long after others have quit. So if you want to be the best at anything, don't just focus on how to do it, understand why it matters. Don't just chase outcomes, build a life that means something to you. Purpose is what keeps you grounded when things get hard, and focused when things go well. It's what gives your effort meaning and your journey direction. And in a world full of noise, distractions, and empty rewards, a clear purpose is your greatest competitive edge. Find it, follow it, let it drive everything you do.